The old cottage was all we could afford. Its selling point was the view, which looked out over the endless ancient graveyard. The stones were tilted and moss-eaten, a forest of forgotten names. We told ourselves it would be peaceful. The first night, the silence was absolute. It wasn't the quiet of the countryside, but the deep, thick silence of the dead. No crickets chirped, no owls called from the gnarled yew trees that dotted the burial ground. By the third night, we realized the silence was a lie. Just after midnight, a sound began. It was a soft, rhythmic scraping, like a spade cutting into soft earth. It came from the heart of the graveyard. I told myself it was an animal, a badger perhaps, digging for grubs. But the rhythm was too consistent, too purposeful. It sounded like work. My wife, Clara, refused to look out the window. She said she felt watched, and not by the living. She started sleeping with the lights on. I peered out from behind the curtain one night, a flashlight in my hand. The scraping stopped the moment the beam of light touched the dark grass between the stones. I saw nothing, only the moonlit graves, looking older and more sorrowful in the pale light. I felt a profound sense of being mocked. The next day, I walked through the graveyard in the bright sunshine. It seemed harmless, even beautiful. I found the spot where I thought the sound originated. The earth there was undisturbed, the grass old and matted. A large flat slate slab lay there, its inscription worn smooth by centuries of rain. That night, the scraping returned. It was louder now and closer. It was no longer near the slate slab. It was just beyond our garden wall. Clara heard it too. We lay in bed, holding hands, listening to the methodical sound of digging. It went on until the first light of dawn. In the morning, I checked the ground outside our wall. It was perfectly solid, not a single blade of grass out of place. A cold dread settled in my stomach. We started losing time. Clara would stand at the kitchen window, staring out at the graveyard for hours, not moving. She wouldn't remember doing it. I found mud on the floor, even on dry days. Not ordinary mud, but a thick clay-like soil I recognized from the oldest part of the cemetery. The scraping sound changed. Now, mixed with the digging, was a low, wet, dragging sound. Something heavy being pulled across the ground. The air inside the cottage grew cold and damp. It carried a smell I can only describe as wet stone and rotten flowers, the scent of an opened tomb. One evening, I saw a figure. It was just a glimpse between the headstones, a tall, thin shadow, stooped as if carrying a great weight. It moved with a slow, jerky gait. Clara began to speak in her sleep. Her voice was a dry, raspy whisper that was not her own. She spoke names I did not recognize. Alistair Finch, she whispered. Martha Hemlock. I looked up the names the next day in the town's historical archives. They were real. Alistair Finch died in 1783. Martha Hemlock in 1791. They were both buried in our graveyard. The scratching was no longer outside. It was in the walls. A faint, frantic scrabbling, like fingers trying to claw through plaster and wood. We stopped sleeping. The darkness became a tangible thing, pressing in on us. The only light came from the moon, casting the long shadows of gravestones across our floor. Clara's eyes grew hollow. She stopped eating. She would only drink water, and even that, she said, tasted of soil. I found her one night standing by the front door, her hand on the latch. He's calling, she said, her voice flat. He says the room is ready. I bolted the door. I nailed the windows shut. I was not keeping something out. I was trying to keep Clara in. It didn't matter. The next morning, she was gone. The door was still bolted from the inside. The windows were still nailed shut. The only sign was a trail of that familiar thick clay mud leading from our bedroom to the living room wall. It ended there. I pounded on the wall, screaming her name. The scratching answered me from within the plaster. It was faster now, excited. The ghost of her whisper came from all around me. He made a door, it said. There are so many doors here. I grabbed a crowbar and began to tear down the living room wall. Plaster and lath exploded outward. I didn't care about the house anymore. Behind the wall was not insulation, but earth. Dark, compacted, ancient earth. A tunnel, just wide enough for a person, sloped downward. The smell that poured out was overwhelming. the deep, cold scent of the grave. I shone a flashlight into the tunnel, my hand trembling. It descended steeply, shored up in places with rotting wood that looked like old coffin lids. I could see scratch marks on the packed earth walls. I had to find her. I crawled into the hole. The earth was cold and damp, soaking through my clothes immediately. The tunnel went on for what felt like forever, twisting and turning. I could hear things moving in the earth around me, soft shuffling sounds. I emerged not into a cavern, but into a space I recognized. I was in a burial vault, its stone walls lined with niches for coffins. But the coffins were all open. They were empty, their lids broken and pushed aside. This was not a final resting place. It was a waiting room. A voice spoke from the darkness, a dry rattle like stones tumbling together. "You're late," it said. "The ceremony is about to begin." I turned. The tall, thin figure I had seen before stood there. Its face was not a face, but a shifting, pale mask of clay. It held a bony hand out, pointing to an archway leading deeper into the catacombs. A faint, flickering light came from within. I heard Clara's voice, singing a low, mournful song I had never heard before. It was a hymn of the grave. I ran toward the light, past the thing that had spoken. It did not try to stop me. It simply watched me with its empty eyes. The archway opened into a vast, circular chamber. The walls were made of packed bones, skulls, femurs, ribs, all fitted together in a macabre mosaic. In the center of the chamber was a stone altar. Clara lay upon it, her eyes open but unseeing. She was still singing. Figures stood around the altar, shrouded in rotting burial shrouds. They were tall and gaunt, their features hidden in shadow. They were not ghosts. They were something else. Something that had never been alive in the way I understood it. One of them held a stone jar. It poured a stream of black, viscous liquid over Clara's forehead. It dripped down her temples like oil. Her singing stopped. She sat up on the altar, her movements stiff and unnatural. She turned her head and looked directly at me. Her eyes were gone. In their sockets was only the dark, rich soil of the graveyard. "You are here," she said, but the voice was a chorus of whispers. The figures turned toward me. They had no malice in their posture, only a cold, patient curiosity. I was an intruder. "You have been living in our vestibule," the Clara thing said. "The house above is a marker, a gateway." The thin figure from the vault entered the chamber. "The soil is thin there," it rasped. "It is easy to hear the living, to call them." "The previous owners," I stammered. "What happened to them?" Clara smiled, a terrible, stretched smile. "They are part of the congregation now, as you will be." The bone walls began to shift and creak. The skeletons were moving, rearranging themselves, reaching out with bony fingers. I turned to run, but the tunnel I had entered through was gone. In its place was a solid wall of skulls, all staring at me with vacant sockets. The air grew thick and hard to breathe. It was full of the dust of the dead. I felt it coating my lungs. The shrouded figures glided closer. They made no sound as they moved. Their feet did not touch the ground. Clara stepped down from the altar. She walked toward me, her gait now matching the jerky, unnatural movement of the tall figure. "My love," she said, her head tilting at an impossible angle. "There is no need for a house above the ground. Our home is here now." She reached out a hand to touch my face. Her skin was cold and rough, like granite. I recoiled in horror. "The living fear the earth," whispered the tall figure. "But the earth is patient. It waits for all. We simply expedite the process." I understood then. This was not a haunting. It was an assimilation. The graveyard was a living entity, and it was a residence. The figures closed in. I was surrounded by the smell of rot and old stone. The light in the chamber began to dim. I felt a coldness seep into my bones, a deep, permanent chill that promised to never leave. It was the cold of the grave. Clara placed her hands on my shoulders. Her touch was impossibly heavy, as if she were made of solid rock. "Be still," the chorus whispered. I tried to fight, but my limbs would not respond. A profound lethargy washed over me, a desire to just lie down and sleep. The floor of the chamber seemed to soften, becoming like quicksand. I began to sink into it. It was not earth, but something colder. It was a sea of forgotten memories and lost voices. I felt them brushing against my mind, hungry for the warmth of my life. I saw the faces of all the others who had lived in the cottage, their features etched with the same terror I now felt. They were all here, trapped in this subterranean world, their consciousnesses absorbed into the hive mind of the graveyard. I sank deeper. The cold earth closed over my head. There was no air, only the suffocating pressure of the soil. But I did not die. I could still see, still think. I was aware of the weight of the world above me. I could feel the roots of trees threading through the soil around me. I could feel the worms burrowing past. I could feel the vibrations of footsteps on the grass above. A visitor, laying flowers on a grave. Their grief was a sharp, bright pain to me, and I could feel the cottage. I could feel its foundations resting lightly upon my chest. I was the earth it was built upon. A new family moved in yesterday. A young couple, full of hope and laughter. They think the view is peaceful. I can feel them walking on the floors above me. I can feel the warmth of their living bodies. Tonight, when the silence falls, I will begin the scraping. A soft, rhythmic sound, just under their bedroom window. The man will peer out into the darkness. He will see nothing, but I will see him. See, Clara is here with me. We are part of the chorus now. We whisper to the wife in her dreams, telling her the names of the dead. The soil is thin here. It is easy to hear the living, easy to call them. The graveyard is not a place of rest. It is a patient, hungry creature, and it is always looking for new neighbors. The couple is arguing now. The wife says she feels watched. She is right. We are watching. We are waiting. The gate is open, and the room is almost ready. Soon the scraping will be inside their walls. Soon they will smell the wet stone and rotten flowers. They will become part of the congregation. Their house, their lives, their memories, all will be absorbed into the earth. It is the way of this place. It has always been this way. The graveyard grows, not outwards, but inwards. Deeper and darker, forever. And I am its newest caretaker. I must now help prepare for the next residents of the cottage. The moon is rising. The silence is absolute. It is time to begin my work. I focus all my will on the patch of earth just beyond their garden wall, and I begin to scrape.